Hello and welcome to the 39th episode of Into the Rift. I am your usual host, Stephen Nguyen. I've got the same panel as the last 2 weeks because we're talking about the same tournament. Alright, so first off, we got Emily, who is sick this time. It is the law of the universe that either me or Emily will be sick at once. If neither one of us are sick as the last 2 weeks because we're talking about the same tournament. Alright,
The
so
world
first
will
off, we
end.
got Emily. I had the sound looping through the Twitch channel. Okay. If at any point in time where me and Emily are not sick at the same time, just be careful. Something's gonna
You're
go down.
probably gonna get.
Something fucked up's gonna happen in your life, and it's because none of us is not sick. Anyway, so Emily is also Captain Jack today.
Yay.
Writer for LoL Esports, Liquid Legends, Follow Esports. How are you doing? Other than being sick.
I'm good, thank you. Or I'm well, thank you.
Alright, I also have got Nasser. I know it says Empire 19 on the overlay, but I wasn't informed that his Twitter handle changed until we started, so I couldn't be ours to fix it. But whatever, his Twitter handle is his actual name, so it's right there actually. So you're not even having to do that much to find his Twitter code. It's Nasser. How do you pronounce it?
I'm Naki.
Naki. There we go. So it's right there. How are you doing?
Good, good.
You just announced as Energy's new analyst.
Yep. Pretty excited about that. Can't wait to start.
Are you going to be working remotely?
Remotely for spring, and then we'll see what happens after that. Because I'm still finishing up my master's degree as well, but still working full time. So.
Awesome. And you're ready for the Fellow Esports, so right?
Yes, still freelancing for Follow Esports.
Gotcha.
In like the near future only, probably.
All right, and then we got Stolo, writer of his own vlog. How you doing?
Yep, I'm doing. Well, I'm living.
All right. Let's jump right into it. Though we're gonna do a pretty short episode like usual. We're gonna try and keep these condensed, easier to digest, less banter, etc. So we're gonna do KeSPA Cup Roundup and IEM San Jose. Last time we did the show, we did it before round of 8. So we thought that SKT was going to win the whole thing. We thought... No. Half of us thought that CJ would beat KT. Neither thought that KT would win, so... Nasser...
Well, a few of us
with...
decided that it was CJ's time, right? It was the time
Yeah,
of
like
CJ.
it was just like the perfect prank for CG to win that series. Especially versus Emily's favorite team, KT.
Yeah.
God.
Either way, Emily won, right? Because she loves CJ just as much as we do.
It was a win-win situation for her, really.
If I recall correctly, Nasser called for the 2-1.
Yeah.
2-1. And then I said as a joke, half joke, that because this is the last push for hopefully before they bench Shine Ambition, that they'll make it to the finals. And I was right, but they didn't win the finals. Who won the finals? Yeah. It was Ever. We were right. Oh, about the rise of the Net Cafe teams. Okay, you three were wrong. And I banked on the 1% dream chance. No reason. I don't actually get to hold it over your heads, but I called it the Ever win. Because Ever sweeped SKT.
In pure Twitter analysis.
Yeah, pure Twitter analysis right here. I don't take any credit for this, but I do feel proud for calling it. So what happened? Why did Ever sweep SKT?
Well,
go ahead.
SKT played Scout the first game, and less than inspiring. So, and I think it was an issue of SKT that I don't know how prepared they really were for this tournament. They played
Spinner. I don't expect any of the teams that came after Worlds prepared for this tournament. I honestly don't.
Right. I did not expect much from KT or Q or SKT. I still expect SKT to win, but
that's what we all thought, honestly.
Right. But they played Scout the first game. And you kind of saw some issues in that Marin kind of underperformed, which I think is fairly typical. Both Bang and Marin fairly underperformed. I think it's just with a weaker mid laner. Scout was not drawing the amount of attention that someone like EasyHoon or Faker does.
Okay,
so I
so
think
what kind of player would you characterize Scout as in the game he played? And I know it's just one game, but
yeah,
Is it
It's
just too
so
little? I think
tough.
it's one game, right?
It's way. I think it's way too little to start thinking
Unfair
about
question
the
for
type
me.
of player he is.
Mhm.
But I don't know. He wasn't that good, but I don't think he was particularly bad. He
Mhm.
wasn't the reason they lost. I think
Okay.
Lauren
So
really kind
what
of
about game two then? Because Faker played that game, and then
they had no idea how to close out the game.
okay.
They didn't have a comp that could wave clear and push down towers, and
Well,
Ever just stalled.
they could have ended
They
that
could
game.
they could have.
They were
Yeah.
so close to winning that
Was
game.
it a
Yeah.
mistake,
Uh,
or did Ever just like jump on this like small opportunity that helped them get back in it?
It was a mistake.
Mistake.
that was the game where they had 4 dragons, right?
Yes.
Then
Mhm.
they lost. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yes.
they had 4 dragons, and in 2 instances, they just did not get the final dragon, and Ever just held out really, really well.
Yeah.
They had the Gangplank Tristana Lulu comp. By that point, like 40 minutes, it's gonna start doing stuff.
Mhm.
Like the comp that they had, SKT had Callista, Lissandra, Gragas, Rumble, Tahm Kench. At that point, they can't, force their way into Ever's base. And with Gangplank, Tristana, Lulu, they can just wave clear all day and stop SKT's advances.
SKT was up like 10,000 gold. It was like 11,000, 12,000. It was getting up there, and
Yep.
they just. I feel like they kind of botched it in that they weren't forcing enough. They weren't forcing tower dives whenever. I mean, there were a lot of
It just
times where
wasn't
they could
polished
have
at
just
all.
right. There were there were more than a few times where they could have just dove in hip towers
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
just like
Didn't.
have Morin toss an equalizer out and just take
Yeah.
it, force it.
Right.
And they just didn't really force anything, and it eventually got to the point where the Lulu Tristana comp kind of
Mm.
does Lulu Tristana things
Gangplank.
and Gangplank.
Gangplank was such a weird story in this tournament because he had
Yeah.
an abysmal win rate. Like his win rate's bad,
Yeah.
but at the same time, he was really high pick ban because you can't ignore his late game like lucky crit barrel.
Yeah, that was
33% win
I
rate.
hate those barrels.
Yeah, so like it's just like that was another weird thing that Ever definitely I feel knew how to use to their advantage was, and I'm not saying that they didn't improve over the entirety of the tournament because I do think you could see like very rudimentary learning as they progressed throughout the series. But at the same time, I think SKT really lacked a lot of finesse. They did look sluggish.
Mhm.
And yeah, Gangplank is such a weird story because his early game is not good anymore either. And I know, like, for example, when Scout was on Gangplank, it was wholly underwhelming in terms of how they
Yeah.
used him. But then it ended up being one of the reasons why I ever won because
Yeah.
late game Gangplank is still just dumb.
Okay, so I have you bring up a pretty good point. So I'm gonna go with Master with this because you're the analyst. And I know you worked with Origin for Worlds, so this is pretty relevant to the question. At Worlds GP, I think one of the highest, if not the highest, pick man priority. One, I don't know the exact statistics, but at that point, Gangplank was insanely strong. You don't let him through. And if he's having such a win rate this tournament, that tells me one of two things: either the nerf was that much, or it's just that at the time, because it was so close to Gangplank's rework release, we didn't know how to deal with it. Do teams know how to deal with Gangplank now? Is that or
It's
is
a combination of things. So the nerf was that he doesn't get the mana refund, or is it was that he doesn't get the full mana refund, right?
He does not have a
Yeah.
mana refund.
For the Q, which hurts his laning phase. So he's gonna have a even tougher laning phase than before. On top of that, Korea, like finally a region has embraced the Lissandra pick, and I think the
Yes.
Lissandra pick has, it's like one of the best early game / mid game champions, and can just abuse the lane because it's so easy to gank for Lissandra with all the CC.
Mhm.
So I think those two plus what else? plus teams not or like players not knowing how to play Gangplank very well.
Okay.
Because there aren't that many good Gangplank players, to be fair. Unless
Right.
the champion does get to the late game where you just need to hit one ult, hit one crit, and GG.
It's like 80 zigs. Someone put it so succinctly to
Oh, I
me the
love
other
it. I
day,
love the
and we were
concept of
talking,
that.
and like everyone loves zigs, right?
Yeah.
Can
Love
someone
me
get
some
that
music and
picture?
zigs.
Can someone get that picture of Monte Cristo where he's like, they picked Ziggs again and like replace it with Gangplank? I'd love that. I don't actually. I would do it myself. But I don't have the picture. So I'll ask this: do you think we'll see a lot of Gangplank in IEM? I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but I just want to ask that one question. Do you think we'll see a lot of Gangplank at IEM?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
Nothing really
As
changed, you know.
ban worthy or just low enough to get through picks all the time?
I think he'll get into picks.
Yeah. It'll be picked.
But
I think it will be
also
similar to KeSPA.
Yeah, because it's weird. His late game is really difficult to ignore, right? But it's not necessarily that you have to ban him either. It's just a matter of like either tricking your opponent into picking it and then trying to take advantage of the early game, or picking it yourself and banking on late game.
So basically,
has-
it'll be like Darius at Worlds, where he always kind of got
Because-
through, but he
You,
was.
you still have you still have some Gangplank players like Soaz,
Right.
Zion
Yeah.
Spartan. Those are two that come across my mind.
think-
But I think we'll see like a 70% to 80% pick ban rate.
Yeah. I think it's a champ that if you're playing against a player that is a good Gangplank player, like I said, as good Gangplank player, I don't think you can let them have it because
They're gonna abuse it.
the champ has some really, really, really noticeable strengths, and
Sure.
that like playing around his ult, it kind of really negates opposing pressure. Like, being able to engage, it's a really good disengage tool, and just that late game is absolutely disgusting. So
Alright,
I think you'll continue to see it.
All right. So enough of that for now. We'll get back to that kind of later when we get into IM. So let's continue wrapping up KeSPA Cup. So Ever beat SKT, and then Ever sweeped CJ. Now, I don't necessarily want to talk about just the CJ games alone because, like, we all know that some big stuff is going on with CJ. Their management, their coaching stuff got terminated. We expect some sort of roster movements in the future. What I
Yeah.
actually want to ask is, can we actually take these games and study Ever? Like, how much worth do these games have? How much worth do the KeSPA games have? Because SKT didn't really practice much. CJ is CJ, and they're going
CJ.
and they're losing their
Yeah.
coaching staff, or they're on the same time as KeSPA Cup. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means anymore. But focusing on Ever as a team, should we expect much from them moving forward, and especially for IM Cologne because
Well,
they're qualified for that?
Well, they're not going to be playing in Champion Spring, so we'll see them at Cologne. If they win Cologne, which would be one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen,
Will they even be able to use
They're
Q?
gonna-
Because I heard he was accused of Elo boosting.
Yeah, I honestly think like the full value. Sorry, there are sirens outside, but I think the full value of the KeSPA Cup, like overall, unfortunately, and this is gonna sound really mean to say, but I think it's good for the Ever players because they're probably gonna get picked up by other teams. But in terms of what this Ever team is going to look like at Cologne, it's not even going to be the same roster. Like, Key's going to get banned for Elo boosting.
And he was a big part.
I
His
think-
Bard was fantastic.
Yeah, and he's a fantastic player. So, I mean, that's unfortunate. It really is because I'd love to see him on an OGN team.
Yep.
And then in terms of other players, like, I think Athena is going to get picked up. I think Crazy is going to get picked up. And they'll just...
Loken.
Loken, maybe, yeah. And they'll just, bring on more players onto their roster. But, like, in terms of what it means for them as a team, there's no way they're staying together. They're going to get picked apart.
it would be very shocking to see that same 5-man roster, or even like
4 men.
Four-man
of
roster
the.
minus P because of the ELO boosting.
Yeah, it'll be very shocking to see that roster even stay together for much longer. I think.
With that said, yeah, it was still really impressive to see more or less amateur team have such a strong performance and actually win a tournament against reasonable opponents. We don't really see that often in league, so it was kind of refreshing to see.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really say they're a really good team yet, because I value consistency over time to be like a key marker of whether a team is good. But it was refreshing to see. It was refreshing to see some upsets. To see this kind of like Cinderella story take place.
Okay.
I actually also did really like a few of the Svenu games and a few of the Anarchy games too. Like I think both of those teams prepared really well for this tournament. So it still remains to be seen in terms of whether they can translate those results into actual OGN wins. Mm-hmm. But I thought both teams looked vastly improved over some of the things that they did in Champions. So I guess it made me excited to see those two teams and see if they can pull out some better performances than we saw from them in summer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, because that's kind of my thoughts on KeSPA Cup as a whole. Because KeSPA Cup, this is still my most annoying pet peeve. Okay, maybe not pet peeve. Annoyance with KeSPA Cup is the fact that it was done in the Season 5 patch when none of these strategies might not even be a thing. I mean, with the minion changes coming and all, and the Hada carry changes. Yeah. So, the games themselves mean nothing to me, but Anarchy, Spenu, and Ever do show promise. And that's, I think, what we can take away from KeSPA Cup.
I think a lot of the games were fairly meaningless. In the grand scheme of things, I think they're all fairly meaningless because you're going to see all Korean contracts, I believe, are up later this month. I think it's November 26th or the 30th or something like that, around that date. All Korean contracts are up, so you're going to see a lot more moves happening early December, and a lot of teams are going to be making moves. So I don't think we're going to be seeing very many teams sticking together 100%.
Yeah.
So, and plus the preseason patch. So.
Right. That's my annoyance with KeSPA Cup. If they only waited, I mean, they might not have been able to wait. So I can't adjust to that.
Yeah.
So. Is there anything else important we can take away from KeSPA Cup?
Not much else, I think.
No, not much.
Not much else? Alright, let's move on a little bit. We're not going to jump right into IEM right away. There's two things we're going to talk about. One, I mentioned it earlier. It's the CJ coaching staff termination. What should we expect from CJ moving forward? Do you think they're going to be replacing those players? Do you think we're going to see a new roster? What does it mean to lose all your coaching staff like this?
They're total rebuild.
They're just dead in the water?
I think it's going to be a total rebuild. They might keep Coco, or
I hope they keep
Coco. Coco might choose to stay. I know Coco has a lot of options. He has a lot of options because he is a top 5 mid laner in the world, and I'm sure once his contract is up, every single team in the world is going to be vying for his services. The other 4 members, I think it's the end of the line. End of the line. Except not Mad Life. I think Mad Life has a little bit more gas in the tank. So
I think they might see. They'll probably give Mad Life another try if he still wants to play because support's going to be pretty big again with the bottling.
He brings that veteran. He brings a veteran presence, which would be good on a rebuilded squad.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
CJ,
thoughts?
I think Ambition's gone. I
hope Ambition's gone. Sure. Either put him back in mid lane and have him actually be good, or
he can't be in mid lane anymore either.
He can't be in mid lane. I know, he can't be.
I think he's gone.
He's done.
I hope Space is gone too, just because he's
taking up space.
He's had more than enough time to prove himself in terms of. Every year it was the new, and that was always the joke, right? CJ would come out and they'd be like, but Space is more aggressive this year, Space 2.0, Space 3.0, and that never really happened. And Mad Life is the kind of support I've been told from several people that that know him a little bit better than I do, that he will take his cues from his laning partner, which means sticking him with space is really unfortunate.
So he's
So
literally in space prison, like we all imagined.
yeah, he literally is in space prison because
Yeah.
of his
Time to get a
lifestyle.
new
So I
AD
do
carry.
think that partnering him with a up and coming aggressive AD carry will help. Like you'll see his performance improve as well because he won't be taking cues from such a kind of passive, indecisive laning partner.
Yep.
I think Shy is gone. It's weird because Shy's whole thing was like he was rumored not to practice in solo queue. And there were all these things like you, and now you don't know. I guess we don't know, and I'll admit to being really harsh on this, and maybe I shouldn't have been. We don't know how much of that was coaching staff and how much of it was Shy, or how much the coaching staff was allowing Shy to get away with, like with the whole NAR thing earlier this year. So I think Shy might be gone, but I also think because he did show that he still has something in him, maybe they would decide to give him another chance or like put him on the bench and then start another top laner, but keep him on the roster or something like that and see if they could actually get him to perform up to the level that he has shown to still be able to play at, I guess. Especially on certain champions. So I'm kind of up in the air in terms of what they'll do with Shy. I think that's a big question mark. And then Coco, as we already said, if he stays on CJ, it'll be because he chooses to, not because.
Right. And plus, CJ, I don't know. The CJ mid lane situation is weird just because they have BDD, who is very, very, very good and very
Isn't
promising.
he too young though?
Yes, he is 16, and I think he turned 17 in, was it March?
Yeah, they're February or March, I think.
So, I don't know. I don't know what'll happen there, but Coco, I've heard a lot of him going to China, going to NA, going to everywhere except Korea. So, who knows?
Well, I mean, right now I don't want to get too much into speculation because, as we know in the esports world, deals are never solid until the season starts. At the very least, we can very well predictably say that they will be going for a nearly full rebuild. And as a CJ fan, I hope they do. All right. So something else came out. The Incredible Miracle new roster. Who wants to tackle that?
They haven't signed anyone yet, so
Right.
I'm not gonna, keep my
I
hopes up.
am. I'm a little excited, but I
First
always
of all,
get excited.
can you tell us who the new roster is, just so everyone's on the same page?
There is no new roster for Incredible Miracle, but
There's just like a bunch of different
right.
players.
There you go.
Their new
attached to
their
the
new
org.
sponsor. It's not really a new sponsor. Longzhu, which is a Chinese
Streaming,
internet
right?
organization.
Streaming,
Yeah, it's a streaming org. Very, very big in China. They are the title sponsor of IEM, and they've been the title sponsor since I believe last December or
Yeah, it was
January,
last year.
right before spring. And for whatever reason, they have decided that they are going to put a lot of money into Incredible Miracle. They publicly stated this, and now they want to assemble a very, very good team on Incredible Miracle for the very first time, which is interesting. So,
You think
so
Lilac's still gonna be on it?
well, of course.
Lilac can't
He
lose.
is
What are you
Incredible
talking
Miracle. You
about?
can't have them without Lilac.
So, Incredible Miracle is looking at a completely new roster. They've been rumored to look at top challenger players, Easyhoon, Mata, Spirit. Again, it's all speculation.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it plays out. Again, contracts are up in Korea later this month, so we'll see how everything unfolds. It'll be very interesting.
Because those same players are also, wanted by other teams.
Yeah.
In Korea, China, and North America. So we'll see.
it'll be interesting how everything plays out. But the thing with IEM is that they have two really good players right now in Frozen and Ignar. So I personally would love to see them built around, fill in the pieces rather than total rebuild and just like burn it to the ground. And
No, wait, KT Frozen. Come on, guys.
yes, please, KT Frozen.
KT Frozen, yeah, I could get behind that.
Or KT Easy Hoon, I guess. But
I have no idea if
KT
Easy
Frozen.
Hoon's gonna leave.
Since they're yeah, I mean, I don't know. No one knows. I think the big story with this though is like a lot of Korean organizations, aka everyone but SK Telecom, have been known for underpaying their players. So I think the big repercussions from this, or like the key takeaway from this, aren't necessarily the specific names that have been dropped in terms of who they're seeking, but the fact that they are willing to spend big money to assemble a really good roster.
This is, I think this is like the first. I think this is the first team or first like organization in Korea or that is involved in Champions that is like publicly stated like, yeah, we're going to spend a lot of money and we are going to assemble this huge team, because every other you have these KeSPA orgs that these esports teams are more or less a side venture to much greater things. Like
this is the first team wanting to create a super team, basically.
Right, and outside of SKT, all these other teams are they don't pay.
Like even SKT, I would not call that lineup a super team.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
No.
SKT has a lot of they have some pretty big holes in that.
I just realized Scout was number one challenge, number one on the ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I realized? Okay. Remember when Marin was picked up because he was number one in solo queue, and then he was this god tier top laner, and then he started playing, and people were like, "This is the top ranked player." Did we just have the same reaction to Scout? Does that mean Scout's gonna win Worlds 2017? He's gonna need a full year before
Scout.
I think it's written in stone at this point. Like, this is going to happen.
Yeah,
I'll laugh if that actually happens. He needs the full year of being like not amazing, and then the year after that he'll be amazing. Just because it's the same trend. We'll see if it happens. That's just like something funny I kind of thought of. Well, that's pretty much all the stuff on Korea. We're gonna move on to IEM. For IEM, we're going to talk a little bit about the format, why we don't like it as much, and we're gonna do the teams, right? With all these new rosters, but we're not gonna do them one by one like we did for KeSPA Cup. We're gonna do them in order of the matchups because the bracket's already decided. So first of all, let's talk about the bracket. Why don't we like the bracket? Some of us don't like the bracket.
Okay. This is typical IEM.
Yeah.
Where, like,
sorry, I
it's
hear
a single-
typical IEM, and it's always something to do with the bracket.
it's right. This is every single thing. I've gone in. I've like watched some CS:GO. Same issues where the format. Everyone complains about the format. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't just like this is a single elimination. Is it best of three? Best of three first round, is it? Or
best of three quarterfinals and semifinals.
Best of three single elimination. Like, what is this? And then
you're basically flying teams from China, Korea, Europe to potentially only play one, 2 or 3 games.
One
Two
best
games.
Of three. One
Yeah.
best of three. That's it. Are we real? Like, I don't know. And then you're giving these teams a bye. Origin.
That's the thing that
I
has
don't
never
get
made
the
sense
bye.
to me. Like not this year, but previous, like all years, aside from the way they set up the World Championship at Katowice, because obviously that's different, but which has its own issues because best of one, and I hate them.
Yeah.
But I have no idea how the seeding's decided.
Like I think honestly it's just due to
Randomly?
time. I think it's just due to time and resources, and they're just trying to keep everything compact and within one weekend. Because if you see the schedule, it's already I think the first day is 8 hours with only with only 2 best of 3s.
Mhm.
So I think it's mainly just time and money, and that's why the format is that way. But they're not gonna say that, you know.
There are a lot of things they could do to fit in more games in 2 days, but they won't. Uh,
So what do you suggest then?
not do they have to force it into 2 days? Why are we cramming it in 2 days? Why don't we expand it
Because
to
they have to rent
If they
out the
could, if they
stadium.
could only rent it for 2 days, that would explain why.
right? That's the only
But
that is
here's
it.
the thing: a lot of older tournaments back in season 2, and I remember that these tournaments only happened 2 to 3 days, but they had a lot more teams. And the only reason they were to fit a proper format, proper double elimination format or a groups in bracket, was because they had multiple stages. And I don't know why we don't do that anymore. If
I
you
was
could
gonna
have
say
multiple
they
stages,
just need to play games simultaneously.
Okay.
it's not an
No, I'm-
issue. Like the only issue is that Riot wants everyone to watch every single game, or ESL wants that. I don't know. I'm not
That's
gonna blame it
right.
on any one person, but bring back the multiple stages. Honestly,
Yeah,
you could
that-
fit
Yeah, it
a
makes
proper.
absolutely no sense.
You could
They
you could
won't-
fit a proper format in 2 days with a million games and a lot of teams, and no one would complain.
They won't.
I think it's also like, or my personal frustration, I guess, is exacerbated by the fact that we don't have a lot of international tournaments to
Mhm.
begin with.
Yeah.
And so I would love to see, and like, Thorne recently wrote a pretty good, I guess, overview of that. I would love to see this become a legitimate circuit, like a legitimate international circuit. I completely
Yes.
agree with that.
I
And the
love that.
fact that it's not really frustrates me because we have so few international tournaments.
And MSI was good, but the other international tournaments we've gotten, were just they just lacked.
Yeah. Yeah, the
lot
IEM
of-
ones
yeah.
have not been. You know, there's a lot to work there, and I hope they do consider bringing back the multiple stages, because I think that would be the best way for them to do a
also-
fun tournament, but also do it in a cost efficient way.
It also solves the problem of teams just having to wait around and do nothing. I
Yeah.
know players have complained about that because like when you just have a really really long schedule of best of ones, you're just at the studio just kind of chilling, like waiting for your game to be played. And what if your game is the last day and you're kind of tired by then because you had to do fan meets or whatever? I don't know. Either way,
It's just
like,
not worth it to go to fly out, like so many hours, 20 hours, to
Mhm.
just play potentially 1 or 2 series. It's
Yeah.
just, I feel like it's not fair.
Yeah.
It's just bring back multiple stages. Honestly, like you lose nothing. I feel like you lose almost nothing.
They won't
maybe
ever bring it
cost,
back.
I don't know.
They'll never bring it back because Riot likes the fact that everyone is watching one stream, because with one stream you get massive numbers on one singular stream. With multiple streams all spread out, you're getting instead of
Yeah, but you
you know,
spread all the
instead
numbers.
of-
You combine all the numbers at the end anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
don't
know
know
what
if
you're
there is-
saying though. I know
Maybe
what
they
you're
just want
getting at.
one big, one
I
big
think
number.
they want everyone watching one game.
It
And
makes
they
the
want
Twitter
everyone watching the
experience, I
same
guess,
games.
a little better for them because they can monitor all those tweets.
Right.
That's how
Everything
they do
everything
it.
that happens
It
in
makes
social
sense,
media.
But
Yeah.
this isn't right. I mean, technically, this isn't right. This is IEM. Bring back the multiple
Well,
stages.
IEM complies to everything that. That's the only reason IEM gets these international tournaments, is because they have to comply to everything that Riot says.
That's unlucky.
So yeah,
Oh.
that's why you don't see any other international tournaments.
Well,
is
I mean,
because
yeah, we've heard rumors that they're bringing best of 2 to LCS. Maybe if we can plan a little
Yeah.
bit more next year, we'll get the multiple stages back. So hopefully,
Everyone
by
make
step,
a big stink about it.
step by step, we're gonna have an international circuit. We're gonna have multiple stages, double elimination brackets in the year 2018. All right, that's our goal. Let's do it, guys.
we're
2018.
working
None of
our
us
way
are in
to.
esports anymore.
Long-term goals. All right, let's move on to the teams and the matchups. All right. So, the first game, I don't actually know what they're doing. Yeah, they're doing in sort of TSM LGD. LGD more or less having the same roster, but we're going to be seeing Flame this time if Esports Pedia is not lying to me. We don't have to go too much into detail of LGD since we've already seen them. CLG. Do we know who their AD carry is yet?
Sticks it.
6A.
6
6A.
Okay, I was. So it's
which
going to
is
be
their,
Zion Spartan.
ADC from their challenger team, CLG Black.
He's a
So
And he's
it's-
never played a professional game.
I think he was supposed to at first, wasn't he?
He was.
I know they
okay,
they
so-
wanted to do the rotating roster, but I think visa issues.
Yeah.
The thing-
Well,
yeah,
they signed him. Well, when they signed him, it was kind of as a just in case Doublelift was going to retire after spring.
Okay.
But he ended up staying, and they just put him in their challenger team.
Yeah, he was signed early 2015. Yeah, early 2015 as their CLG Black team, and then the CLG Black team did not do anything in spring. They weren't very good, but he was like the standout player on that team. So come summer, whenever CLG was doing a little bit of get rid of Link thing, they were gonna bring in Pobelter. They brought in Hui, then they were gonna bring in Stixay, but Stixay had some issues. I'm not exactly sure what happened because there's a lot of contradictory stuff going on here.
Okay.
But
You
he
don't
was
have to get too
banned.
much in the details anyway.
Right. He was banned for toxicity.
Yeah.
So there's just I don't know. His debut has been delayed for far too long. He's a very very promising player.
Okay.
I
But
think-
So is this a tryout for Stixay, or is he
I
confirmed
think-
AD carry?
I think due to the market right now and how CLG do not have an advantage in the market because they can't compete financially with these other teams, and I think the best they can do is Stixay probably, but we'll see what happens. But I think
Yeah.
this is basically his tryout. But I think he's going to, he's gonna become the starter whether or not, unless they can somehow find a better ADC. But I think
Yeah.
they're gonna stick with Stixay.
Okay.
But I just want I hope like the community doesn't put too much pressure and too many eyes on him because
Right.
this is going to be his first professional game
Yeah.
versus on an international stage. Granted, they're gonna play Unicorns of Love in their first series, so they're in the weaker side of the bracket, kind of. So it's not gonna be too bad, but don't expect too much. He's still raw. He's talented, but he's still raw, and he needs a lot of development before he gets to being like what people are hyping him up to be.
Okay. So let's move on just a little bit. I mean, same topic, but before we actually talk about the matchup between CLG and LGD, do we know what patch IEM is going to be playing on? Preseason patch or no?
521,
No,
not preseason.
521.
Not
It's
preseason.
5.21. No.
Same as KeSPA.
Unlike
Yeah.
last year.
Damn it!
Same as-
Come on, guys.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the games are kind of useless
Underwhelming.
from an analyst
All right.
view.
We'll move on from that.
The thing
disappointment.
is, like, so these games are practically meaningless because
Outside
the
of
format is
Team
bad.
Signature.
The format is bad. All the teams are
The rosters are
experimenting.
weird.
Like all new rosters except for LGD. So like 5 out of 6 of these teams are basically going to use this tournament as like I wrote about this, and it's going to be basically like an experiment to try out their new team, see how they fare on the stage rather than in scrims. And so I think from that point of view, fans can watch this tournament to get an idea of how what are the play styles that these like new teams are going to lean towards. Are they going to be top, bottom, mid, top? Who's the carry? What kind of play style? Do they have good shot calling, bad shot calling? And where do they need to develop? So fans and the teams themselves can use this tournament as a proving ground to assess their new teams.
Okay.
And as for LGD, they can use this to show the world they're not a bad team.
Actually, on that subject, I made a mistake. It's been a long day. It's TSM LGD and then CLG UOL. But we talked about CLG for quite some time, so we'll just do that first. CLG and then Unicorns of Love is Vivizachi, Gilius, Fox, Steelback, and Hillsang. How do we expect these two teams to match up on the world's the KeSPA Cup patch.
This is
So like Unicorns of Love, like their team, they constructed a better team than I imagined they would.
Yeah.
They lost PoE, and they lost their jungler Horo, and they released their ADC Vardags. And they got an upgrade. I think they got a definite upgrade in the ADC position.
Yeah.
A slight downgrade in the mid position, but not too bad. Fox is still,
He's serviceable.
average.
Yeah.
He's serviceable. And Gilius, though there's a lot of like memeing and he's kind of known for this like bad attitude on social media and in game, he's actually pretty talented. And considering like the jungle pool right now, he's also pretty serviceable. And I would actually rate him as equally to like someone like Kikis, and in effectiveness kind of equally to Horo as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the UL. I think the UL team as a whole. I don't know if it's not worse. It's not worse than what they did, because I think getting rid of Vardags was the biggest issue.
I feel like it's just better overall. Just
I think Horo was definitely better than Gilius. I think PoE was definitely better than Fox. But I think what they gained at the ADC position, I think Steelback is fairly solid, and I think he's grown a lot as a player since he got off Fnatic. His time spent in NACS, just kind of like learning the game, because he was thrown into a leadership role on these NACS teams. Like he was literally teaching a lot of these NACS teams that have never really played competitively, just how to play the game, because Yellowstar taught him a lot. So I think he's learned a lot over the past like split or so. I think he's going to come into this team, and I think he's going to surprise people.
okay. So gut feeling, CLG or Unicorns of Love? What's the score? 2-1, 2-0, either way, 50-50.
This is a tough.
It's a tough question because these rosters are completely undusted right now.
Yeah.
But I think right now we know more about the Unicorns of Love players, as just more than CLG. Because I have no idea how the 6A Afro lane will go.
And I haven't seen who he plays since Big File.
Yeah, well, me and
Fusion.
Aaron and I watched him play on Fusion, and he was definitely one of the best players on that team. Well, probably the best player on that team. He was the only person that didn't look like he was trying to feed.
And from the analyst
Always good.
And I think he's a good player. So don't get me wrong, I think he's a good player, but I think Pobelter is still better individually. Yep. But of course, they said CLG did say that they chose Huhi because he seemed to have like a better attitude. They liked his work ethic, and they think he's a better in-game leader. Whether that's enough for him to perform better than Pobelter remains to be seen. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of the CLG roster. But I think I will still give them the edge, just because they had practice over the Worlds, and they kind of had all this time to also practice for this tournament. I think more than UL, so I think I'm gonna give the edge to CLG for this one. Maybe probably 2-1, but I can see it going the other way. So okay. I'm not downing on
2-1 either way.
Either. Yeah, 2-1 either way, but I'm giving it a slight edge to CLG. Just because they're more coherent, they have a coaching staff. I trust in Zeke's. He seems like a smart guy, so I think they're gonna win this.
What about you, Emily? I know you don't really watch too much anime, but I know you watch EU time to time.
I have no idea. I agree with the assessment that it's like a coin flip, and B, it's probably going to be a 2-1, like back and forth. I don't know. I will say I will give the edge to CLG for the same reason that Nasser did, in terms of just preparation and practice time, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe UOL was doing tryouts like up until very recently. So yes. I don't think they've had like as in like couple of days ago recently. So I don't think they've had a lot of time to actually play together as a team, and that's not to take away from the talent, because I actually am a really big fan of Steelback. I like him a lot. I think he received a lot of undue criticism. I mean, obviously he deserved some criticism, but I think it was piled on him a little bit too strong.
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't really like the prevailing atmosphere around him. I think he's better than a lot of people say he is. But in terms of being able to prepare, I don't think they've had as much time to practice as a team. So I'll guess it's just CLG as well.
So you said 2-1, Emily?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Still, what do you think?
Probably 2-1 CLG. Because I know who he has been practicing with the team for months now. Stixay has been around the team for months now, but I don't know how long Stixay has been practicing with this roster. I mean, they got rid of Double Lift on, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago? It's like Halloween night, wasn't
3 weeks. I forgot.
it? It was like Halloween night, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Sure.
Yeah. So they got rid of Double Lift then. So I guess Stixay started practicing around that time. I'd give the edge to CLG. I think they're a more practiced team. I don't necessarily think they're more talented. I like the UL roster. I think they're a lot more evened out. I think they're a little, they're team dynamic wise, buzzword. I think their team dynamic is a lot better than what it was whenever they had Vardags, who was kind of a gaping black hole of talent.
I think
Would
Fox
you say
and
he was the goon of the UL?
He was the goon of UOL.
I think Fox and Steelback gives them the structure and like the level-headedness that they lacked previously, which might be a negative thing because that's what it gave UOL so much success in season 5. So
chaos style.
Okay, so let's see. It's going to be interesting because there's also other things to consider, like what the other EU rosters are gonna look like. But we can talk about that in like future episodes.
Okay. For me, I think I'd honestly might go 2-1 for Unicorns of Love, if only because I do think Fox and Steelback form a really, really strong core for their new team. And right now, I have a little less faith in the practice, like the duration of practice. Even though we just kind of saw that in KeSPA Club, so I'm just kind of talking my eyes for there. But like, gut feeling, looking at the rosters, I'd go 2-1 Unicorns of Love, but I do say 50-50 either way.
Yeah, it can go either way. Like
All right, so this time we actually get to talk about LGD. So LGD TSM. We don't really have much to say about LGD other than the fact that they're playing with Flame. I don't know if they're going with all the games, but throughout Esports Pete, it tells me if it's Flame. I'm gonna go with that.
Oh, Flame is actually starting the entire time?
I have no idea if that means he's
starting
the entire
time. As far as we
time.
know, yes.
Okay. Oh, okay, all right.
So that could be a pretty good positive for that. On the other side, we've got almost completely new, basically a completely new lineup for TSM minus Bjergsen. So we've got Hanser, Svenskeren, Bjergsen, Double Lift, and Kasim. Now, it's hard to say how effective this TSM lineup is going to be. This is obviously going to be the test for TSM. Is this...
Yeah.
Like, okay. So, I'll
I don't think it's a huge test because they're going against supposedly a strong team. If it's an LGD that's well practiced,
hopefully well practiced.
It's a really tough test.
Let me rephrase the question. In the last 2 iterations of TSM, not including the Glebe thing, I'm talking Amazing and Santorin. Yeah, because I know before they joined TSM they were a lot more proactive in the game, and then when they joined TSM they kind of became like follower junglers, like the same. They're just like followers. Svenskeren, how do you expect Svenskeren to change the landscape of TSM's team dynamic? Do you good, bad?
Svenskeren isn't gonna give a rat's ass what anyone tells him. He's gonna go aggro. He's gonna
That's my hope
into
for
that. Yeah, he's gonna go into the enemy's jungle and try to find the enemy jungler and try to kill him. He's gonna gank the lanes which he thinks are gankable, which will probably be around mid most of the time. I hope. Like the thing is that I think Amazing and Santorin were handicapped, not just because they weren't taught how to play the jungle very well. Well, that had a part to play, but it was also because they were handicapped by their side lanes, Dyrus and then Turtle and Lustboy, who have we know that now that they have very poor communication, and so those two working with their side lanes was like very poor, and that kind of hampered their effectiveness.
Okay. So other than that, what about Hunter? How do you feel about Hunter playing top for TSM?
I think I'm not as high on him as Ryan Tang is. But
Ryan
think
Tank
very
thinks
few
Hunter
people
is the
are.
best top laner in NA over Impact.
yeah. I'm not as high on him as Ryan Tang is, but I do think Hunter's a pretty good player. I think he's an upgrade over Dyrus, basically across the board. I think he is just so much. I think he's much better. I think he's a much smarter player. I think a lot of his issues last split were team issues in the sense that their team did not know how to play the early game. So you would so often see Hunter be set back in lane swap scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Like
They had a horrendous win rate on when they lane swapped. It was
yes,
like
it was awful.
abysmal.
They did not know how to play lane swaps, and you saw it in playoffs whenever they played against TSM. There were games like it was almost every single game they would lane swap, or TSM would force a lane swap, and Haunter would be down two levels on Dyrus at like 10 minutes, and it was very bad.
Yeah, considering
So
how much TSM shafts Darius to begin with,
right,
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, but
so
I think we saw Hanser at his best when Gravity played standard lanes, and he
yes,
was a really, really solid laner, really effective, flexible champion pool. He's one of the better TP users and engagers in NA, which is not saying much, but it's something. It shows like at least like some improvement
Well,
from
that would be
from
good
Darius.
considering we're still on the season 5 stuff where TP is big.
yeah.
All right, last question. I know we're focusing a lot on the TSM roster, but it's a complete new roster. Double of Kasing. How, I actually have no idea what to think of this lane. Like, I mean, I'm not saying like I think either player is bad or like, but I don't know how it's gonna work out.
Uh,
It's because Double has played with the Afro for like all this time.
Yep. I don't know how it'll play out. I don't. A part of me thinks that TSM is going to be very bot focused, just based on Svenskeren. Whenever he was with SK, they tended to play a more bot lane focused team.
Okay.
He puts a lot of pressure bot lane, and I think that that's going to continue with TSM, just because Doublelift's very lane dominant ADC. He wants to play these champs that are really strong in lane, press advantages early on, and I think Kasing is a very good laner as a support. Kasing is very good overall. I think across the board, I don't think there are many attributes of Kasing where he's pretty where he's like a deficit in.
Mhm.
So I don't think it's Kasing that you have to worry about. It's just synergy, really, and that, like I said, Doublelift is coming off of 2 years with Aframu. Kasing is coming off a year with Hjarnan.
Yeah, and we know that Hjarn played a role in shot calling with
Yep.
Kasing,
Yep.
and I think that's something that might affect Kasing.
So, and they've only been together for 2 weeks tops. So it's just, I think it's synergy. They're both individually, I think they're both very good players, even though I don't really agree with Doublelift in this particular lineup. They're both very good players individually. I think given some time to mesh, they're going to be very good. I don't know how they're going to perform here, just because they've had so little time together.
All right,
I
and now
think-
here comes the real question, where Emily can actually chime in. LGD versus Team Solomid.
Oh god.
Do you expect LGD, if they're actually well practiced this time, to just roll over TSM?
I mean, yeah, it all depends on whether they practiced, right? Like whether they actually prepared for this tournament. I know I was joking around with Jenny, their like media manager, and she's like, "Please believe in us again. Please believe in us again." And it's tough because I did feel a little bit badly for LGD when they were at Worlds because they did not show they were not the same team that they were in China. And you guys can go on your like crazy tangents now about how China is a garbage region or whatever, but like they were a very good team.
Yeah,
And it was really frustrating, I guess, for them at Worlds to not be able to perform. The big thing is going to be TBQ, obviously, because TBQ, even at their best, TBQ is not a good jungler. And a lot of their machinations have to do with how they cover up for the fact that TBQ is not a good jungler, in terms of like their ward placements and how Godvey will take his camps and stuff like that. And with Flame, the dynamic does change a bit because more attention will be given to top lane. So that should be interesting. And we did see him perform well at Worlds, you know, within context. So, and even though they chose to go with Acorn for various reasons, I don't think there really honestly shouldn't be a doubt in anyone's mind that Flame still isn't absolutely a top tier top laner.
Yeah.
So the question marks, TBQ, is he going to show up? Is he going to do the bare minimum to not be a liability?
Will he get Lee Sin?
Will he get Lee Sin is actually,
Will he not pick Vi?
Next question.
Okay,
Will
so
they actually have solid pick candidates? And yeah, that has a lot to do with it as well. I'd like to say that LGD is going to take this primarily because if they're true to their word, they have been preparing for this tournament, whereas Team Solomid obviously has not had that same practice time because this is a team that was eliminated from Worlds very early, so they've had a lot of time to think and stew and hopefully prepare. Even though this tournament is essentially meaningless, like even if they take it all, people are just going to say, oh, well, it was just a bunch of random rosters anyway.
Yeah.
But it would do well, I think, in restoring their own confidence and their own pride. So I do hope that they do well. But I don't think it's unfeasible that TSM would take a game off of them, especially since it's really hard to prepare for this roster, right? So it's just revealed. So I'm going to go 2-1 LGD.
2-1. Okay, Nestor, score.
I think it's 2-0 for LGD.
Okay.
I don't think TSM will be quite prepared, and I think LGD have had a lot of time. You know, I echo Emily's thoughts. They've had a lot of time to prep for this tournament, and they have a lot. You know, they want to prove themselves that they're not a bad team.
Yeah.
Still, score
2-0.
2-0
LGD.
LGD, okay.
TSM, they're not going to come. They're not going to be as prepared as they should be, and they're a vastly improved roster from what we saw at Worlds. But again, they're not going to have much preparation leading up to this.
Yeah.
And
one other thing to consider is that we're still on the patch where the top lane meta is still relevant.
Yes.
And Flame versus Hunter.
Yeah.
Right.
Flame over Hanzo.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this LGD team, they have a lot to prove. I think they're going to come up here. I know I haven't personally watched Chinese streams. I don't speak Mandarin, but I've heard some rumors that like Godvey he was one of the first LGD players to get back to streaming, and like that was like a big thing because he was being flamed basically the entire time for his performance. He got back to streaming and has been abysmal in solo queue lately, supposedly. And he's been tilting, and man, I hope he shows up because I know Godvey prior to Worlds was incredibly talented. So I hope they show up. I think they will show up. They have a lot to prove. So hope they win it all.
For me, definitely want it to be a 2-0 for LGD. But I do think there's a possibility that Svenskeren destroys TBQ and wins against himself a lot. So I'm not gonna shove that possibility to the side.
Yeah, it can happen.
I won't be surprised if TSM wins, but I definitely want LGD to 2-0 or 2-1. You know.
Yeah.
Because another thing to consider is that even though TSM has this like pretty good lineup, They have a new coaching staff, and it takes time for coaching to show results. You can't just bring
Yep.
on a new coach and be like, okay, you lost once, you're out. Like, no, that's not how coaching works. Coaching is a time commitment with the team. So whatever happens, TSM fans don't despair. And whatever happens to LGD, I'm just gonna say this to
If
everyone.
they lose,
I'm
they're
just gonna
done.
say this to everyone who uses like the Chinese World's performance to shit on the region. Like, like, oh, you're just making excuses that like they played better in China. Yeah, well, all NA teams looked better in NA. All right, all years. Just gonna say that.
You know,
All right, you don't get to say that about China if you're an NA fan and all your teams failed you in every year other than season 4. All right. Anyway, we were actually able to keep this to an hour, so I'm pretty proud.
Oh, great. Are we not going to talk about Origin and Jenner?
Damn it! All right, we're talking about Origin and Jenner.
Jenner.
All right, so we'll start us off with Jenner. We were so close to an hour. Jenner.
Man,
Is this
Jenner-
the year? Is this the year of Jenner? Is this where they show it?
Of course.
I'm gonna
I'm-
record this and hold it.
This is
over
the
your
third
head
time
if
he
they
says
don't.
this is the year
I
of Jenner,
know.
and they failed every time.
If they lose at IEM, I'm gonna like clip this specifically and just put it on a YouTube video, like this like 5-second clip. All right, go on.
Come on, third time's the charm. Third time's the charm. No, I'm just still excited to watch this Jenner team in action. They played with Winged all through KeSPA Cup. So, Chaser, where are you? Please come back. Honestly, like I just want to see this roster in action because I think it's incredibly talented. I just want to see him keep playing. I'm very hyped for both Kuzan and So-On, even though neither played particularly well in KeSPA Cup. I don't know. I want to keep watching them. Like I think this is a team that they need a lot. They need some time together, and what better way than to smash UOL or
COG.
CLG? Like that's a good start to the year of Jin Air.
All right. What about Origin? Nasser, you worked with Origin. I know it's new mid laner, but what are your thoughts?
I think they only started scrimming recently. They don't have a coaching staff. We all left. So me, Hermit, and all the
How
analysts.
cruel
left.
is it for me to ask the former analyst to what do you do about the team you left because they don't because you all left for your team, man.
Yeah. So we all left, and I don't think they are going to be as prepared as a team like LGD, but they are still more. How do I put this? Like their foundations are still there compared to teams like TSM and CLG, and they've added a really really good player in PoE who isn't going to suffer. Peke never really suffered in lane, but he is not going to be a negative effect in terms of needing kind of like assistance is one way to put it. I think PoE is going to output more pressure for the team rather than Peke, who kind of towards the end of his career he was kind of more of a weak point on the team. Even though he was still serviceable, he wasn't doing what he used to be. He was doing previously. On Fnatic.
Yeah.
So I think PoE is an upgrade, but PoE will need time to adjust to the team and the dynamics because the team is still bot focused. So that might actually hurt PoE at the start until he gets used to it.
Okay. So I'll ask this then. I was so excited to end the show at an hour that I almost forgot to talk about these teams, so I'm gonna ask this other question. So so first of all, Origin, are they gonna beat LGD or TSM? But like whoever goes past the quarterfinals, Nasser?
LGD, no. I don't think Origin beats LGD.
But they would
I
beat
think
TSM.
I will.
That's tough. Kind of depends on how TSM shows up.
Yeah,
really.
that is a hard question to answer.
If TSM can beat LGD, I think TSM can beat Origin.
If TSM can beat LGD, I think they can beat Origin. Very, very convincingly.
But I think LGD will beat both TSM and Origin. We have to
Right.
remember that Origin went 1-1 versus LGD
Yep.
in the group stages. So it's not, like LGD still finished third in that group, 2-4, and they took games off TSM and Origin.
You know, Origin has or LGD has a 100% win rate against Origin whenever they play Flame. Can't discard
There you
that.
All right, there you
go.
go for that. All right.
It's math.
Versus
Statistics.
TSM as well.
Wow, it's just math. Yeah, that's just so simple as that, Aaron. I wish. All right, last question to all of you. Who do you expect to win, or who do you expect to see in the finals? Emily, go first.
I really would like it to be Jin Air LGD.
Okay.
I think if it's not Jin Air LGD, it will be Jin Air Origin.
Okay.
And in terms of how Jin Air and LGD match up, Jin Air in the KeSPA Cup did show significant weaknesses when they had to group up and team fight together, just because they showed a lack of communication, coordination that previously Jin Air definitely had during the regular season. I think Chaser playing is going to make a difference with that. So provided that Chaser plays, that's going to make like an LGD Jin Air matchup a lot closer, because Chaser will dumpster TBQ. So you know how I am about my carry junglers, okay? Like I want them
we know.
desperately. So I think if it's Jin Air Origin, I think Jin Air wins. If it's Jin Air LGD, that's a lot closer. I'd like to give it to LGD, provided that they're actually playing at their top level. If they're not, who knows? Probably give it to Jin Air. That's really tough, because I know it's really weird to bet on LGD for most people, but I've seen them perform at a very high level. So,
all right. So,
Chinese
Stillwell,
analyst.
what do you think? Who's gonna win, Jin Air?
It will be Jin Air and LGD in the finals.
Okay.
I think I'll go LGD, probably 3-0 or 3-1 in the finals. I have faith that they're going to show up, and I have a feeling that they will monster both TSM and Origin. And I think Jin Air still, I think given time, Jin Air would probably be maybe better than LGD, but they don't have that much time, so LGD wins it all.
Okay. Nasser, what do you think wins it all, or who's in the finals?
I think it's going to be LGD Jin Air.
Okay.
And I think LGD will take it. It's just because I don't think I still see a lot of weaknesses in this Jin Air lineup, like we saw in KeSPA Cup, and I think those weaknesses might continue in this tournament. And if it is Origin in the finals, I think, or TSM, I think they can also take the series versus Jin Air. Just because, I don't know, I'm not as confident in Jin Air right now. I think they can become better, but right now they need a lot of work. They're not as cohesive as a unit. They're right now just like 5 really good young individual players.
Okay. I agree with that assessment. That's probably the same assessment I'm using, just because, Jin Air's new team. And with most new teams, especially with like a lot of new players, you need time to grow. So I'll say LGD 3-1, 3-1, 3-0 in the finals. But if somehow TSM makes it through, then I'm going to say Origin Jin Air in the finals. That being said, that's pretty much all we're going to do for now. Do you have any shoutouts, Emily?
Thanks for having me. Shout out to Nasser on his new analyst position.
Thank you.
Shout out to all the places I write for. I guess LOL Esports, Liquid Legends, and Follow Esports.
Nasser, shoutouts.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. And shout out to Follow Esports, who I am freelancing at. You can check my articles there. Shout out to my new team, Energy. Hope we bring you good League of Legends finally to North America. And you can follow me and my content and my esports adventures on Twitter which is not what is showing on the screen. I'll just type it in chat.
I'll type it in on Twitter afterwards. Don't worry. I got you, buddy. Still all shoutouts. I know you don't usually have shoutouts, but do you have any shoutouts this time?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to NASA Hermit for the jobs on NRG or Energy. Shout outs to all my friends who are out there getting jobs in esports, and I mean the promising monetary world of esports. But yeah, I mean there's a lot of you out there that are currently getting analyst and coaching jobs. So good luck. Shout out to all of you.
All right.
And yeah.
For me, shoutouts to Esports 7. That's where I write. Hoping to get something out tomorrow or the day after. And I have more time freed up, so I'm gonna hope to get at least one out a week, or at least, stuff out every month. But also shoutouts to Mike. I don't know. I think no one here knows who Mike is other than me and Emily. He's one of the founders of Paravine.
Oh, it's his birthday today.
It's his birthday today, exactly. He's not even watching it right now because he's gone back to his real job. But if it weren't for him and Nilu making Paravine, we wouldn't have Into the Rift, even though Paravine doesn't exist anymore. So, happy birthday, Mike, wherever you are in London. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all of you. Good night.